Hello guys, this is RGB Fox, and I'm here to talk about characters that people regret pulling for. And if you see on the right hand screen, I did put a picture of it, more like an infographic of a poll that was taken on Reddit. I don't know exactly which community it was taken on, but as you can see there, the majority of the people who participated in the poll regretted pulling Cyno the most, along with Klee and Childe. And honestly, it's a little shocking, so we're going to look into why the reasons may be. And honestly, I mean, I can't think of a character that I regret pulling for, so let's go ahead and determine the reasons why people may feel this way. Again, my name is RGB Fox, and if you did like this video, by the way, do consider subscribing. We're very close to 100 subscribers, and I'm honestly glad that I'm about to hit that milestone. So let's get on with it. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about Childe is that he's not necessarily a good AoE unit, which is crazy, as you can see in this tweet here. By the way, I am blocking out their profile picture and their name, so you don't go ahead and try to find them and bully them. That is of course not something that I want to do in this channel, but I did want to make it apparent that it's not true. He doesn't have worse AoE than Ayato, and both of them are great at establishing damage while being able to hit multiple enemies at once. Have you not seen Riptide? Riptide is large, and it's the sole reason why his AoE is rather large compared to most units in the game. Now, sure, it's not only independent to the Riptide alone. As you can see anywhere, Childe's AoE still stacks around with multiple enemies, and there's a reason why he has quadratic scaling on his normal attacks. Now, that aside, it does seem that a lot of the misconceptions or regret does come from the casual people in the community. Not saying that they're bad at playing the game or that they have a skill issue, but if you don't know how to play with his rotations, then it can be awkward to actually play with this character and see that, oh, his damage is actually low. But when you actually play him properly, he is one of the biggest damage dealers in the game and provides you with a lot of value. His team comps end up being better than almost every other national variant in the game, and that is because number one, you have Kazuha enabling you to get a buff in both Pyro and Hydro, and of course his massive AoE enables him to be able to combat multiple enemies. Not only that, but he's also the best Hydro applicator in the game, meaning that Shanling is actually going to be able to vaporize all her damage at no issue. So I believe the biggest flaw with Childe is just that many people truly don't know how to play him properly, and once you get the hang of it, then you end up realizing, oh, Childe is actually pretty great, and now those showcases online that shows him being really good actually make sense now. And for that reason alone, I have to say that Childe definitely doesn't deserve this spot, but I can see why people think this way. The next character we're going to talk about is Klee, and why do people regret pulling for Klee? Well, number one, I'm actually surprised that Klee falls below Cyno in number 2, whereas Cyno is in the number 1 spot, but I digress. When many people started this game, it seemed that they wanted to pull for Klee, as Klee seemed like the next viable pyro option right next to the Luke and could deal really good damage. But what they ended up finding was actually something below their expectations. Number one, she applies a lot of pyro. What does that mean? It means that she really can't vaporize her own damage, as the amount of pyro that she applies is almost constant, and thus the people that are actually going to be vaporizing is going to be Hydro characters who are going to conduct forward vapes. Number one, forward vaping is never going to be as good as reverse vaping, and much the same, forward melt is not going to be as great as reverse melt. Now, does her pyro application actually suck? No, her pyro application can be great in many instances, such as in reverse melt teams and in mono pyro teams. In reverse melt teams, someone like Rosario can actually melt all of her damage, as her elemental burst doesn't have any ICD. Thus, being able to melt every single one of that can lead to good damage ceiling over time. In mono pyro teams, however, that's where Klee's viability starts to fluctuate. Sure, mono teams can be good, but will they ever be as good as elemental reaction teams? Not necessarily. In fact, I would say not at all. Sure, Amano Geo team with Ito can deal really good damage, but is it ever going to be better than a Childe International team, a Reverse Melt team? I don't think so, and that's where the problem with Klee lies. Another issue with Klee is her elemental burst not being consistently good. In fact, it's kind of a terrible elemental burst. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'll show you guys. When Klee activates her elemental burst, that little flower right beside her will attack alongside with her, and it will apply pyro. Now honestly, this sounds good on paper, but whenever you switch, it leaves the field, and this isn't the fault of being on it too long. No, if you activate her burst and immediately get off of her, the elemental burst leaves, and boom, a big portion of your damage that you spent 60 energy for is now gone, and it stays like that forever. And honestly, I don't know why they allowed this issue to persist, but here we are 2 years later after she's been released, and they haven't fixed the issue, and they're probably never going to fix the issue, as MiHoYo stated that they're not going to buff characters, they're not going to change their kits, they're not going to do any of that sort. So we're kind of stuck with that. Honestly, for all you Klee mains out there, I feel for you, and hopefully they end up changing their minds, but at the moment I don't think that's going to be an actual thing that they will do. Now lastly, we have Cyno, and quite frankly, I think I know the biggest reason why people actually don't like Cyno, or rather why they regretted pulling for him, and that is, well, if you already had Raiden Shogun and you were looking for another Electro DPS to fulfill your Electro needs, Cyno is good, but Cyno is not great. And that's kind of really what I want to talk about. A lot of people pulled for Cyno thinking that he was going to be this busted unit. And after all, they did have him in the Teyvat Interlude chapter a long time ago, as well as him having his own time with the comics. And quite frankly, can I blame the people for thinking that? Not really. But at the same time, you gotta realize MiHoYo hasn't really been releasing too many broken characters once Sumeru has been around. At least the 4 stars have been pretty bad, but as far as the 5 stars go, the only really good ones that I can say that have been great are Nahida. And that is not like an issue that the community should have had, but I mean, when you see the expectations like this person right here, wondering what they can do to make their Cyno better, realistically, he is a character that requires a lot of heavy investment. Someone like Xiao, someone like Eula, you know, they can be excellent hyper carries, but at the same time, you gotta know when and where you can play them. Another glaring issue that Cyno has is that he kind of stays on his burst for too long, up to 18 seconds, and in the middle of your burst, if not before that, a lot of your buffs end up running out, whether they be Kazuha burst, whether they be Bennett burst, whether it be Official to be right there alongside you to give you energy particles. You can switch out early, but what if you don't have enough energy to come back? Well, now you have to battery him, and there's a bunch of issues that can really happen depending on the kind of team comp you're playing with him. There are ways to adjust that, and I can put a link down here on the KQMN's website showing the quick guide for Cyno, but is that truly enough? A lot of people wonder, is EM correct? A lot of people wonder, is attack correct? A lot of people wonder, how much energy should I give to him? He is a complicated character to play and to actually utilize, and if you don't know how to properly do so, well, guess what? Your Cyno damage is going to suck, and I have experimented a lot with this unit. I've even done a video on him before. Yes, he is underwhelming, but that doesn't mean that he is bad. It's just that a lot of people ended up having high expectations for him, and quite frankly, there are better Electro DPSs unlike him. You can use Keqing, who is very flexible. You can quick swap her, you can keep constantly reapplying your buffs, and she is a lot easier to work with. And then you have someone like Raiden Shogun, who even to this day doesn't really need Aggravate to make her damage any better. You can still play her in the hyper carry team, and she's going to be doing a lot, and I truly mean a lot better than Cyno. She still has excellent AoE as well, and number one, she doesn't have the same energy issues that Cyno has, because quite frankly, she batteries herself, and number two, her damage is always going to be really good because her burst only lasts between 7 to 9 seconds depending on the hit lag, and for that reason alone, she takes advantage of all the buffs that is given to her in that short duration. So yeah, while I do love Cyno and while I still love playing him, I can see why people regret pulling for him, and a lot of this is probably because there there's been a lot of new players that decided to grab him and realize that he has not met up with their expectations, and that's also probably the reason why he took the #1 spot in this poll. So that's really all I had to say about that. So for all those reasons, those are probably the main reasons why people in this community regretted pulling for those characters, and I can agree somewhat, but honestly I say if you have these characters and you couldn't make them work, you don't think their damage is that worth it, I advise you to try to play them again and see if you can do anything that can make you actually appreciate their playstyle a little bit more. For me, when I started playing Cyno and Hyper Bloom comps, I ended up enjoying him a lot more, and while my Aggravate comps were still good, playing him in those Hyper Bloom comps really made me appreciate him more, so I'd suggest you go ahead and do that. Well, that has been a trip. I don't know what else I can really talk about except thank you guys for my recent video on whether or not to pull for Raiden. It is the first video on my channel that has hit over 10,000 views, and that video has almost gotten me 100 subscribers, from 52 to 90. So honestly, thank you guys for the support, and the appreciation that I have for you guys is astounding. I really couldn't be here without you guys, and I truly appreciate everything you have done for me. My name is RGB Fox, aka The Real A-Town, and if you enjoyed this video, guess what? I do ask that you consider subscribing, leaving a like, and commenting on maybe some of the characters that you've regretted pulling for. So yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. Peace.